Hello. I decided to do this podcast because used YouTube in the past and I'm not very consistent with it, to be completely honest with you. So I thought I'd see how this way of doing things go. So this first episode of hopefully a few, maybe as I said, more consistent than YouTube. This first one is going to be an introduction to me, um, who I am, what I do, and what the journey has been for myself to get to where I am now. And then also at the end of this, got a little Q&A from people who sent me questions on Instagram. I've avoided doing podcasts in the past just because I'm scouse, so I talk fast, I mumble a little bit, and I'm asthmatic, so you might get some of my heavy breathing, but it might just be some slightly strange ASMR. But yeah, you're here, so you may as well listen, and I'll carry on. So, for me, I started coaching in 2013. I was working in what was then LA Fitness on Rose Lane, Mossley Hill. It is now, I think, in Everlast. While I was there, it changed to Sports Direct. And it was just a classic commercial gym, to be honest with you. It was a start in the fitness industry. I didn't necessarily want to work in that kind of setting. But as I said, it was a good start. So it got my foot in the door, basically. And then from there, I was there for, I think, just under 3 years. I left early 2016, started late 2013, left early 2016. So I think it was 2.5 years. I moved on to a more powerlifting specific gym. And then around that time, I started coaching powerlifting. In between those things, so in 2014, I started powerlifting myself. So I didn't just coach powerlifting without actually any experience. I had a fair bit already. So I started powerlifting because I was having some mental health struggles, really. I was struggling with anxiety, depression, that kind of thing, and I wanted something to just focus on. And I thought, I've always been relatively strong, so I thought I'd test myself and see how strong I could get. And I ended up looking into strongman, decided that I couldn't do single arm shoulder press, because my shoulders are very weak. And I thought powerlifting looked like more fun. So I looked into that, found that there was a competition at the end of the year. So we're talking at this point, I think it was probably December of 2013 or January of 2014. Probably more likely January of 2014. And I found the competition in the November, and I thought that was plenty of time to train. So I basically trained towards that. I ended up doing a bench only competition first in the September. That one I ended up discovering that my scales were completely broken, and I thought I was entering as 83, but when I got there, it was 85.2. So there's a bit of a story for you there. Make sure that your scales work. Make sure that you check them against other scales if you got the opportunity to. And then at that competition, I got one lift in, and it was enough to win a gold medal that day because the other lifters in the 93s, one of them matched me, but he was a heavier body weight because obviously I was 85.2, which is quite light for 93. And the other one bombed out, if I remember correctly. And then November, I did the Northwest Champs as my first competition, and I really liked it. Competitions are run much more efficiently today, but it was a long day back then. I say a lot as well, but that goes with being scouse and mumbling. So, yeah, as I said, long day. I made the mistake of forgetting my food, leaving that at home. What else did I do wrong? I missed my first squat on depth, but then I realised it was just depth and then just went a bit deeper on the second and third. Bench, I think went pretty much fine, if I remember rightly. It was 3 for 3. And then deadlift was also 3 for 3. So generally, my first competition, I went 8 for 9, and I adjusted as I went. So I made a mistake at the start and just fixed it as I went. What was the next competition? The next one after that was probably my worst experience. So I'll come back to that later because that's one of the Q&A questions at the end. And yeah, I did that next competition, which I'll talk about more later. Another I did British first, then another Northwest, and then it just went from there. It snowballed from there. I've done it over 15 competitions now. I slowed down after the first few years of doing them, mainly due to things like injury and just working too much, basically. But yeah, I'd already competed to a national level in powerlifting before I moved into powerlifting coaching. And I found that the actual having the competition experience was very helpful. And I found that out more recently as well. I find that there's things that I look back on from older competitions that I realise I could do better. And that's actually, it's helped me become a better coach in that sense. So I don't mind too much about admitting that I've made mistakes in the past in terms of competition day and attempts and warming up. Just that kind of thing. A good example I've got there is I remember I handled at the All Englands a couple of years ago, and the lifter that I was handling got 2 red lights on a squat. But then from my angle and from the angle of another video that I'd seen, it looked absolutely fine. But this was the first time that I'd been at a competition with a jury there, and I realised afterwards that some people were going to the jury and had their lifts then overturned. And it's something that if it were to happen now, I would go to the jury and see about getting it overturned. Just little things like that, like things that you wouldn't necessarily notice at a regional competition or club competition or anything like that. So yeah, just an example of something I've learned from there. So yeah, I decided to niche a bit more in terms of coaching. I went more towards powerlifting. I started the powerlifting group properly in 2016, sorry. At the end of 2016, I started the group. At that point, it was like once a month, and it was 3 people, I think it was. And then in 2017, I made it an in-person thing where once a week we would have a group session at 6:30, I think it was, on a Wednesday. And that quickly went from 3 or 4 people to 8 or 9. And then I ended up going to adding a Friday in as well, and then a Saturday too. And then that structure pretty much stayed the same throughout the whole time. During that time, I got injured myself and didn't focus on training myself as much, and I focused more on coaching powerlifting. And basically, the coaching of the powerlifting has been more a priority to me than my own competing for a while now, other than maybe a period in 2022, which I'll get to in a minute, where other than that, I've just been coaching mainly. I've coached at a lot of competitions as a result. I've coached from, as I mentioned before, from regional or club level to regional level to national, international level. So yeah, in that time, it's been quite hectic. So 2017, I coached my first competition. I think that was a bench only one as well, actually, which I liked because it was sort of my first competition was bench only, and then my first coaching experience was at a bench only as well. After that, it just sort of, at this point, it's sort of a competition nearly every month at least. Obviously during lockdown, things slowed right down, and then just after lockdown, things took a little bit of time to pick back up again in terms of competitions and whatnot. But I have a great group of lifters, and a lot of them have been with me for years and years, and a good number of them during lockdown continued to support me, basically, so that I was able to actually come back and not have to switch jobs afterwards. So that's resulted in me still being here now. And then since lockdown, I competed again, as I mentioned, in 2022. Before that, in 2021, I did a bodybuilding photo shoot, and that was like 9 months of cutting and training more like bodybuilding style. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the sort of focus that it gave me. It was a bit different. I wasn't getting injured constantly because I was trying to get back to my old weights that I used to lift, and that was always the issue with me trying to get back to my old strength and then getting injured again. So I found that by focusing on something different, it separated it in my mind, and I was able to just sort of train without getting hurt, which was quite nice. So I did that photo shoot in 2021, and then my plan was to actually do a bodybuilding competition, but then we had a seminar with Bobby Butters, and that actually got me a bit more motivated to go back to powerlifting. So for 2022, I think April onwards, I was just focusing on powerlifting, and I went back to a powerlifting style of training, found that I wasn't that far off my old strength because I'd been training well, I'd been eating well. I just hadn't been training particularly heavy. And then competed, got comp PBs, which was nice because at this point it was about 6 years since I first got injured. I'd trained and competed in the meantime, but sort of always a little bit further away. So if you look at my open powerlifting, you'll be able to pinpoint exactly when I got injured and then when I tried to come back a couple of times and failed. Well, not failed, just sort of wasn't able to maintain the standards that I wanted to. So yeah, I competed then. And then my plan was to compete again in that Northwest Champs. But around that time, I was looking into opening my own gym, which I did. So, as some of you are probably aware, I own DLF Barbell Club in Liverpool, which is a Northwest powerlifting, English powerlifting, and British weightlifting affiliated club. So we can host competitions in both sports. We haven't hosted the weightlifting one just yet, but it is something we'd like to do at some point. We've hosted a number of powerlifting ones, particularly sanctioned ones as well. So I think we've had 4 of them so far. And then we've had a number of club competitions, which either we've run or initially the Northwest ran. The IPF don't allow you to do that anymore. But initially we did have an IPF affiliated one. Excuse me. And then, yeah, so I opened the gym at the end of 2022. I have been focused on that ever since, really. I've qualified as a divisional referee, in British powerlifting in that time. So currently a powerlifting coach, powerlifting referee, and I own the Barbell Club, which is mainly powerlifting, weightlifting, and then a few sort of like other strength training options in terms of classes and personal training. So yeah, that's largely my journey. I am actually competing this weekend in bench only. I'm not going to do amazing. I'm not planning to. It was more just sort of a way to get me back on the platform because it's been, as I said, over 2 years now, and I wanted to dip my toe back in. So I'll be doing that on Saturday the 30th of November. Yeah, and I've also got I think 6 clients that weekend who are lifting too, so it's going to be a very busy weekend for myself and the gym. I also think Coach B is refereeing on Sunday too. So yeah, busy weekend. So yeah, that is pretty much my journey summed up in just under 13 minutes there. So I'm gonna go on to the Q&A now. So I put this on Instagram yesterday, I think it was, at the time of recording anyway, and asked people if they had any questions for the next bit of content that I make. So I've had a few questions, so I'll go through them now. I mentioned one of them before, so worst competition experience. Not to be negative or anything like that, but that second full power competition I had, which I mentioned before, which I think was May 2015. That seems like so long ago. Well, it is now 10 years ago. Basically, I went into it poorly prepared. So in the previous competition in November, I had totaled 542.5, and I needed 545 to qualify for British. So this May competition, my plan was to sort of push on. I was confident to get more than 545 because like training had been going. I'd definitely gotten stronger since November. So while I was going to say training had gone well, it hadn't. But I'll get to that in a sec. But I was definitely stronger because it had been 6 months or so. So in the build up to that, I was working 2 jobs. I was in college as well. So already I was very, very busy and not sleeping very well. But I was also doing things like going out and going on nights out and that kind of thing and getting drunk a lot and stuff. So when I was either not in a good condition to train on some days. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't going out like every other night. It'd be sort of like once a week kind of thing, which I could neither afford in terms of finances or in terms of physical recovery at the time. So I wasn't well prepared in that sense. And also because I was so busy and I was coaching myself, anytime training would look difficult or anything like that, it was really, really easy for me to just sort of change it on the fly. So I wasn't really sticking to a structured plan. And I just wasn't training very well. As I said, I was showing more strength in the gym, but I wasn't training well. So as you can see here, I haven't actually got to the competition experience itself, but I am well aware that the reasons it was bad, mainly because I was badly prepared. You might be listening to this and think that you've had a bad competition in the past and it's, someone else's fault on the day, but a lot of the time it is just how you prepared for it. If you prepare well for these things, it's quite difficult for them to go badly. If you prepare well, then things will go well, barring any kind of disaster on the day, but that's very rare. So on the actual day, this part wasn't quite my fault. I ended up getting 4 squat attempts because the referee gave me the squat command. I did the squat, and then he told me, oh wait, no, I didn't give you the command properly, so you can do it again right now, which isn't actually a rule. You've got to wait till the end of the round if that's to happen. But that threw me straight away. So I then failed that next attempt, which was my second attempt, but technically my first attempt. And then on my actual second attempt, my head was gone. So I did the squat and then stepped before I got the whack command. Now that was completely my fault. The third attempt, I just thought, screw it, put 12.5 kilo on it because that would beat my comp PB, which at the time was 185. So I went up to 187.5. In the gym, I'd done more than 180 a couple of times. So, I was quite confident that I could get 187.5. I just needed to make sure I did the commands, which I did. Bench, first attempt. I still don't know why I did this, but I put my grip narrower. Do not know why. And then failed the first attempt. Second one, my grip back to where it was. Absolutely fine. Went up by 5 kilo, which was still 2.5 kilo lower than my previous comp PB. And then failed that. So bench was just terrible. And then deadlift, I put my head back on and looked at what I needed from there and put in enough for me to get 545, which I did get on my final deadlift. So I think I pulled 240 at that competition, or 237.5. But either way, I had done more in the gym. I think I'd done 237.5 at that competition. I could check this on Open Powerlifting, but save that for later. But I'd done over 240 in the gym by that point. And then basically what I did from there was reevaluate, go home, eat some pizza. And then I decided to get a coach. And then not long after that, I quit one of my jobs and I was just finishing college. So I was less stressed in the sense that I wasn't working 14 to 16 hours a day. I was working maybe 7 hours a day, which, is a 50% drop off really. And then, yeah, got a coach. And then the next competition I did, which was only 4 months later, I got something like a 35 kilo total PB. And that was at British as well. So I was very happy with that. So yeah, that was the worst experience, but as I mentioned, it was my own fault largely. And I took responsibility and changed things afterwards. And I didn't really look back from there. So the next question, most memorable thing in powerlifting for me, in terms of my own competing, the first thing I always think of is a competition that I did at the end of 2015 again. So that's so old now. And that was a Northwest competition. I had a bet with someone going in about whoever beats the other would buy them like a pack of beers or something. I don't really drink anymore. I didn't drink much back then either. Other than prior to 6 months before. But yeah, I didn't really drink. But it was a bit of motivation, and it was fun. We went into it, and I think I was winning. I was winning straight away on squats, but that was expected. And then on bench, I opened less than this person did, but then I think they failed their second and third benches, whereas I got my second. And then on deadlift, I was just having a good day. And as I mentioned, it was Northwest Champs, so I went from just trying to beat this friend of mine to almost winning the day, because my coach at the time was like, if this other guy fails, we can put a 15 kilo jump on your deadlift and you'll qualify for British and you'll win Northwest. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's give it a go. And then I went out there expecting to not pull it at all, but it moved pretty well. And then put it down and I had 3 red lights. But looking back, my knees were unlocked at the end. And I'm pretty sure I locked it out and then unlocked. So, it was disappointing, but it was a really good day. And I was really happy to sort of do those kind of tactical jumps like that. That noise that was my chair, by the way. That wasn't a fart. I apologise for it sounding like that. So yeah, that was most memorable for me in terms of my own lifting. In terms of coaching, it's really hard to say because I've had quite a few good experiences of coaching, to be honest. I haven't really had any bad ones where I thought, oh God, I completely messed that up there and I feel really bad. Yeah, there's been a number of competitions that have been really, really good in terms of coaching. I think things like I've had previous clients who have gone on to international level. Like, so we've had Shayna, we've had Bettina. They both went on to like Euros while they were with me. Shayna did bench worlds a number of times. Bettina did Commonwealth bench and got best lifter there as well. So those kind of things were really like really nice and really good. But it doesn't just take something of that level to sort of be memorable or important. So taking people from sort of complete beginners to a first competition, just seeing them improve in confidence and self-esteem is always nice. So that's something I like, and I know it's a bit of a cop-out answer, but it's the true answer. So yeah. And the other question, which is the last one, favorite thing about coaching. And I think this links in with what I just said, to be honest. I like the sort of watching people develop and then not even realising that they are developing. So we'll have people who are training and they don't see the amount of changes that they're making in themselves and how well things are going. And then when you show them, like, actually, this is what you were doing 3 months ago, this is what you're doing 6 months ago, or in some cases, over a year ago. And then they look at what they're doing now and they can really see the difference. And I think that's always good. So I'm hoping people on the weekend who are competing will see just how far they've come. Even if it doesn't go exactly as planned, they will see that they've made progress. And that's basically what I'm trying to go for. So in terms of the coaching, it's the favourite thing is helping people do that. And it's always nice to do as part of this community that we've built as well, which I'm very proud of. As if you follow me on social media, you'll know that I'm very proud of that. So yeah, I think that's my most favourite thing about that. So yeah, this has been a little over 20 minutes, and I was hoping for 15 to 30, so I think I'll wrap it up around here. Not too sure what the next episode will be about. I'll have a little think. If you have any ideas yourselves, give me an idea. Let me know what you think. I know this has just been a bit of a ramble, but yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.